Well, welcome to our first podcast. We don't really have an agenda for today. We hiked into this spot in Montana, this undisclosed spot in Montana. And it's bear season, it's turkey season, there's sheds on the ground. So we just hiked in here, glassed for a while, moved a spot to get to some better views. Found this awesome little outcropping here and decided to just hang out, have some lunch, and talk about some of the things that we see in the outdoor industry and some of our differences. And so, yeah, stick around. It's going to be a fun little talk.
Wow, another beautiful day it was.
Dude, it's been, other than the wind, the weather has been so nice.
Yeah, it's been pretty much perfect, actually, right at that 70 mark. Perfect for hiking and stuff.
Our topic is kind of about just how we grew up and our differences. I grew up in Colorado Springs, which is a really big city, and when I turned 18, I moved to Montana and have been here ever since. And Marcus grew up in eastern Montana and has been here his whole life. So we just have some different views on the outdoors just because of the way we grew up, and so we're just going to talk about some of those differences while we sit here and glass. If we see a bear, we're just going to go after it, so you'll just be part of that fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Marcus, you want to give us a little bit of backstory of your growing up here in Montana? And
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in eastern Montana, like you said. So very different from where we're at right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, very flat. I grew up pretty outdoorsy family. Grew up on the Yellowstone, Missouri, and a bunch of rivers over there. And my family wasn't really big into big game hunting. We shot a deer every year, shot an antelope every other year. Because even back then, when I was younger, you were guaranteed an antelope tag every other year. And that's pretty much just recently changed. So yeah, it's a little bit harder to get. There's a lot more people. But yeah, very different from where we are at now, living on this side of the state. And I turned 19 or so. I went to a school, wilderness school, that was, up in the wilderness. And spent 9 months there, and there was no TV, no internet, nothing like that. And that's where I really it was my first time living in the mountains. It was my first time really backpacking, and I just instantly fell in love with it. I've done kind of overnight water trips and stuff with my family, canoeing and things like that, lots of camping. But never really backpacking, we were doing 6-7 days in the backcountry, and I fell in love with it. Fell in love with wilderness skills, all that, and that kind of just led me into the career in wildland firefighting, and it just meshed right together pretty much, and learned a lot more about outdoors and kind of honing in my gear and just run spike camps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was just an engine slug, but still, you're still pitching tents every night and sleeping out, and so I guess that's kind of my...
Yeah, and I have a much different upbringing. I grew up in a big city, and my dad was an avid outdoorsman. We fly fished, and we weren't really into big game until later on in my high school days, but we fly fished all summer long, traveled the country. They're both teachers, both my parents are teachers, so we got to travel as a family every summer, camping, backpacking, fly fishing all across the West, coming to Montana every summer. And I, when we finally did start like big game hunting and going into the woods, running into people, which is not typical here, running into people was just
As
a
much,
thing.
I
Yeah,
guess.
not as much. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just as it was very common when you pulled into a trailhead in Colorado. There, you could expect 30 vehicles to
Yeah,
be
see,
there.
I'd turn around.
And here it's just not that way. And you guys, no, I'm not saying you guys have seen it a different. Obviously, you guys at one point didn't have anybody show up at your trailheads. There was nobody there. And it's not everybody that I know that grew up in Montana. We show up and they're like, "Oh, bummer, there's 3 or 4 cars here," and I'm like, "Dude, there's only 3 or 4 cars."
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah.
a different view that coming from the state where you just have hunters and hikers and you just have people everywhere.
Yeah.
The city I grew up in has a population of the entire state of Montana. So when you think about it like that, I
Yeah.
mean, but it's just been a fun experience to come up in these places and explore. And there's places you get to be here that honestly, you could be the first person to sit down in this spot. You could be the first person to, look on that hillside at that moment in time and those trees. And there's animals here that have never seen humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty unreal. And it's definitely becoming more common to see people. Yesterday,
Yep.
we did a shed hunt, an opener, and there was a couple hundred people running around a not so big area looking for sheds. And it was still, to me, it wasn't that many people, but it was definitely more people than even the last 5 years of my life hunting in Montana. There was still a lot of people there. You
Yep.
had horses and dogs, and you can expect that at kind of a shed opener like that. It's very concentrated and people are there for a very specific reason, but it was still cool to just even then see our perspectives. Even before we had talked, this topic didn't come up until today, but even then yesterday I was able to notice those perspectives, which was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, it's different because my dad's in his 70s, so hearing his stories of hunting are just like mouth-watering.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I mean, it was especially northeast Montana. I mean, or just eastern Montana in general. But, 30, 40 years ago, that side of the state was real desolate. And even when I was just a kid, it was desolate,
Yeah.
But it's just changed so much. People coming in, buying property and closing it off and taking it out of, block management or whatever they do. And just close it off and painting everything orange. And my dad talks about he can pretty much hunt about 75 or can't hunt, I guess it'd be about like 75% of the places he used to hunt.
Wow.
Growing up, which is crazy. And if you're a first time hunter or coming here in the last 5-10 years even, and you're coming from somewhere similar to where you've come from, it's you come here right now, even at this point in time, and you're like, whoa, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
No people. And for me, it's just really easy to watch and say, oh, man, there's people here.
Yeah, and you just don't know what 20 years from now looks like. I mean, we get to hunt a lot. I think of all the places we've been just in the last 2 days.
Mm.
And other than the shed hunt, we went on 2 drives the last 2 nights, and we were the only vehicles in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple tracks from some people that went through some snow, but you just don't know what it could look like in 10 years. Those places could be private. They could be, there could be 20 vehicles in there. And there's something about, like last night when we got up to that, where we turned around that peak with that sun glowing on it, there was something that was just like, man, I hope this never changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just for my mind at least, it's such a way for me to like completely relax and just get to enjoy every moment. And I'm pretty good at doing that, but there's moments like those that really just remind you to relax.
Mm-hmm.
And to just look around you and get to look at our lives. And we're young and we work our asses off, but there's moments like that just get to say, okay, take a breath and look at what you have.
Yep.
And last night was awesome.
Yeah, and it's crazy, thinking about, well, where's it going to go?
Yeah.
What's going to happen too? our public lands and things like that, and people get on people, I guess, like us, that are showcasing it to the world, really.
Yeah.
And really what it comes down to is if you don't get people excited about it and loving it, then they're not going to want to protect it.
Yeah.
So we have the majority of the U.S. lives in cities, and they know nothing about this, where we're at, or what it's even like, or what stars look like,
Yeah.
or a whole gamut of things. But yeah, I think getting people excited about it is the future, because they're going to want to protect it. So showcasing it and getting people out here, getting more people interested. And for me, that's really hard to say as a Montanan and as a person who has
This in their backyard.
hunting spots that, 3 generations ago my family was hunting
Yeah.
or grew up on, or is still farming or ranching. And, I'm 5th generation, my son's 6th generation here. And someday I could go back to those spots and they'll be gone.
Yeah.
They'll be gone, or they'll be
Houses or
houses or whatever, and I don't know, I read a lot about Jim Bridger and just some of the mountain men and Daniel Boone and all those guys, and it's really the same struggle that they dealt with. They came over here, Boone opened up the West through the Gap, and from there it was just further and further and more people, and it's just been growing ever since. But I took a couple of them talk about it on their deathbed. They talk about, did I ruin the one place I love? I found Yellowstone, and now, before he even dies, it's going to be a park.
Yep.
There's people, railroad, more and more people coming out, but the fact is that the people are going to come,
Yeah.
no matter what. So you can be the Montanan that hates out-of-staters and hates seeing those 6 license plates at a trailhead even, or those California or whatever plates, Washington, blah, 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 whatever, or you can just hopefully try to get excited about it.
Yeah.
Think, oh, cool, well, I'm glad, they've probably never seen this spot.
Yeah.
They've probably never been here, the California plates sitting at the trailhead where I go to hunt. But they're here, they're enjoying it.
And hopefully, I mean, as hard as it is to say that, hopefully they fall in love with it as much as we do. Because you're
Yeah.
right. If we don't allow people to come into our world and see what we see and fall in love with what we fall in love with, then it will disappear.
Yeah, they'll want to turn it to streetlights,
Yeah.
and they'll want to turn it to pavement. I mean, because that's what they know,
Yeah.
and that's normal.
And to be here and be we can see cars 20 miles away driving on a highway, and there's nobody here, and there's something very special about this. And I'd rather there be somebody a mile or 2 away from us watching the same thing if they've fallen in love with the idea that they can be here.
Yeah, they want to leave it clean. They
Yeah.
want to protect it. They want to, whatever that is.
Yep.
Donate hours, donate time, donate money, whatever that is.
Well, buy your conservation license, your $10 a year just to, use these roads, use the public lands to get out. All that money goes towards great things. Buying hunting license. I mean, you can buy a hunting license and not use it, and
I do a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, I use my elk tag. Yeah, that sits in my pocket a lot. Yeah. But there's licenses. Our waterfowl license. You
Yeah.
have to go. Waterfowl license is the best license you can buy. 95% of all those funds go towards
really?
waterfowl conservation.
I didn't know that. That's
And-
cool. And it's fairly spending. You gotta do stamp
Yeah,
and then license
yeah,
too.
and the waterfowl stamp is one of the best guaranteed ways to spend money and make sure it goes to conservation. And you don't have to go hunt to buy that that stamp. You go to your post office, you ask for the waterfowl stamp, the federal waterfowl stamp, and it's $25 as of right now. And you go buy it, and you know that money's going somewhere good. And that's what's hard about hearing people like, "Oh, you hunters, and you guys only want to hurt, Mother Nature and whatever." But we're the only ones spending money to make sure that this never disappears.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're a lot of hunters, not all of them. It's the same with any demographic, I guess you're gonna talk about. There's always lemons.
Yeah.
But I think hunters get a bad rap for that, but I also see that changing in the last 10 years. That's been a big drastic swing. Yeah, we're seeing more people, but a lot of these people are coming in.
And they don't have the same values.
They don't have the same values or ethics, but they're coming in with the fact that they love this area and they want to treat it well, and most do. I mean, again, you have your people, and we all like to complain about them,
But it's easy to find those people. That's what's just like, you know, it's easy to find bad reviews. It's hard to find good reviews. It's easy for us to go and say, oh, there's, you know, trash on the side of the road. But there's also probably been 1,000 people that drove that road that didn't put trash on that road. And that's what's, I mean, it's hard to see those things.
Yeah.
Because you see that trash and you're like, son of a gun, somebody's littering on our dirt roads out here in the middle of nowhere. But there's been a lot, you know, there's also a ton of people that aren't doing that. You just don't see that.
Yeah.
Or you don't appreciate it. Because
You don't appreciate it.
Yeah, you don't.
It's easy to focus on negative. That's just life in general.
Yeah.
You really tend to focus on people's flaws, whatever.
Yeah. And really, we're all out here for the same reason. We may have a different experience while we're out here, but we're all out here to get out, get away from the city, clear your mind, you know, whatever that is for you. That's what we're all out here to do. And hunting, and that is our way of doing that. And we came out here today with no agenda.
No.
We didn't, you know, we're not out here to kill a bear. We're not out here to kill a turkey. We're not out here to find sheds. We're out here to enjoy.
Not get stuck.
Yeah, not get stuck.
That's about the only agenda.
But we're just out here to enjoy it. And if
Yeah.
one of those things happens, then it does.
Then it's just such a bonus.
Yeah.
It's such a perk. For sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I hope that you guys got a good view of what we see here in Montana from two very different perspectives of being grown up in different places, but we're all out here for the same reason. And so I hope that you guys find your way to the outdoors and you get to experience the things we get to experience, shooting stars as you hike out at night and watching the Milky Way.
Thunderheads form.
Thunderheads forming from a distance, animals talking without you knowing you're there. All those things. So get out and enjoy your great outdoors. If you want to know the location we're at, the lat long is